Gentlemen, there is no argument that if India has to develop, it has to become a 3 trillion economy by 2047, more women will have to step out of their homes and work. As we speak, only 24% of women in our country are part of the workforce. And you can't blame them. A bulk of the household work, care of children, and the elderly falls on them. How much can they do? How much can we expect them to do? What we certainly can and should expect is that when women do step into a factory floor, an office, a boardroom, or the newsroom, they are safe, and more importantly, they feel safe. And so we got the PoSH Act in 2013, an act that mandates that all workplaces that employ more than 10 people have an internal complaint committee where women can go and complain in case they face sexual harassment. Now, the Madras High Court has said and done something that gives more teeth to PoSH. It has very clearly said, if unwelcome behavior is making a woman uncomfortable, then it falls under the category of sexual harassment. The ruling came in a case involving a HCL employee. He was accused by 3 women in his staff, his juniors, of sexually harassing him. They said he insisted on shaking hands. They said he had a habit of standing right behind them and touching them on the back. They also said that in one case, he had asked one of them about their menstrual cycle. Now, many people are actually asking, can insisting on a handshake actually be equated to sexual harassment? The man, in his defense, told the court and the internal complaint committee that his intention was never to harass anyone. He was just supervising the work of these women, which was his job. But today, the High Court has made it very clear. It is saying it is not the intention that matters in these cases. It is the act. If you force a woman to shake hands and she is uncomfortable with it, it will fall under the category of sexual harassment. Now, here's a question that often arises when sexual harassment cases are reported at the workplace. Something may feel like harassment to a woman. Say messages, some unsolicited messages, but not to a man. He can say he's just being friendly. Or say something could be uncomfortable to a woman colleague, say touching a colleague on the shoulder. The court is therefore making it very clear that the standard of reasonableness would be of a reasonable woman and not of a reasonable man. Saying if a woman feels uncomfortable, she feels she's being sexually harassed, then the yardstick has to be the woman's, not the man's. Ladies and gentlemen, gender dynamics in the workplace are not always complicated. But it takes just one instance to change the conversation in any office. Yes, you need to be sensitive to a colleague's boundaries, but how much is too much? Has the Madras High Court laid a landmine for male workers, or simply cleared the vagueness that surrounds PoSH and sexual harassment allegations? Those are the questions I'm asking my guests this evening. Thank you all very much for joining us here on the broadcast. It's important to get all points of view in. Charu Ali Khanna is a former member of the NCW, also a senior advocate, joining us on the broadcast. Dr. Nisha is a public policy analyst joining us. Abhirami Shankar is a certified PoSH trainer. She's joining us on the broadcast. Deepika Narayan Bharadwaj also on the broadcast with us. She's an activist and a filmmaker. And Kishore Subramanian is a financial expert. He's joining us on the broadcast as well. Thank you very much. Abhirami Shankar, I'm coming to you first since you are a trained, certified PoSH trainer. Can I ask you whether what the Madras High Court has said and done actually gives more teeth to PoSH, or does it make the office space a landmine for men who will constantly be second guessing ki ye karu ya na karu, what if it is construed as sexual harassment?
Okay. Let me answer. This particular thing about what the Madras High Court has said is straight out of the PoSH Act, actually, because the PoSH Act clearly states that it is the impact that matters and not the intent. So the intent can be anything. It could be well intended, could be, but it is the impact that matters. And that's where I think the ruling is coming from. And as you rightly said, I think it's setting right a lot of vagueness or what people didn't take too seriously. The PoSH Act very clearly states it is the impact and not the intent that matters. So that's exactly where the ruling has also come from. So that's my view on that.
Okay, Abhirami, can I ask you then, when we read the headlines, we were a little shocked as well. And, there were many male colleagues who came up and said, will a handshake or insisting on a handshake too now be construed as sexual harassment? I didn't mean it as sexual harassment. Why did you understand it as sexual harassment? And who's the judge on that?
That's a difficult, so it's very subjective. Once again, it's a subjective experience that even the PoSH Act talks about. It says it's a subjective experience, and it purely depends on how the woman is left feeling after that episode. So it depends. I think people have to be very sensitive when they're, dealing with women, and wherever the impact is not leaving a very good feeling, then that gets construed as sexual harassment.
Kishore Subramanian, where do you come in on the Madras High Court order? We have offices. All of us work in offices with male colleagues.
Yes.
Now, 99.9% of them do know their boundaries and don't cross their boundaries, right?
Very true.
But again, what is to say what is crossing a boundary? There are some obvious acts that will constitute as sexual harassment. But in this case, for example, in the case of this HCL employee, what were the complaints against him? The complaint against him was that he would stand at the back to monitor the work. He would make women feel uncomfortable. He would sometimes touch them on the back. He once asked a woman about their menstrual cycle. He insisted that there should be a handshake and not a namaste. My point is, the man is turning back and saying, but it was never my intention. I was just doing my job. My job is to monitor their work. That is exactly what I was doing. I was standing behind them. How is this sexual harassment? How do you think this will impact the dynamic of a workplace?
Okay, now coming, what you're saying is that
now that question was for Kishore Subramanian, please.
Oh, yeah, okay, sorry. Okay, good evening to all my panelists. I am the only male panelist, so I have to be very careful in what I speak and utter. Abhirami being a good friend and Deepika being a Twitter friend, let me first say that the act's intent is super, but the content is very vague and ambiguous. Now, ambiguity is a part of law, whether it is in India or anywhere. Let us be very clear, Shreya, what we are talking about here. What is clearly boundaries is defined by the woman because she is subject to the harassment or the uncomfortableness, and that's fair. But what can be done or what cannot be done is a very, very, very thin line. So I think I'm not going to speak here from the man's side or the woman's side. I'm going to speak from a point which is absolutely fair and square and stands the principles of natural justice. And if that's going to stand up, I think every organization should say the do's and don'ts. Now, let's say on this TV show, if I say madam and it's construed as respect, and I say Shreya is construed as disrespect, then we are extending this argument. And let's not forget, this liberal extension of arguments for convenience has led to a situation in the Western world where, even to the extent that if I consider myself as gender female and if you call me he, I can sue you. Now, this is where, I believe freedom stops where my nose starts, and this unlimited extension and elasticity to freedom is constitute bad for any nation and civil society. I strongly believe that probably, I don't want to be caught on contempt of court by saying something on what the Honorable Justice of Madras High Court has said, but I am being very clear. Organizations should be able to point blank in simple vernacular and English language, point out what's acceptable and what's not. If a handshake is unacceptable,
Okay.
I think that's crossing stupidity and that's limits.
Okay, but here's the thing. I understand your point about workplaces and rules being too woke. I have a problem with that as well. I run a newsroom where I have very competent men and women working for me, right? But Kishore, can I just tell you this as I bring in Deepika into the conversation? Can I tell you this? If you are getting messages, and they may seem like harmless messages, a woman will know the intention.
Yeah.
If someone is coming and patting her on the back, good touch, bad touch, बच्चों को एक reason की वजह से समझाया जाता है. The woman knows. So it may be harmless. You take out the CCTV footage and the man has just tapped her on the shoulder. It's harmless. You will go to the ICC. ICC will say, what bakwas is this? How is this sexual harassment? But a woman will know that touch. And I think that is what the Madras High Court, Deepika, if you want to come in here, that is what the Madras High Court is clarifying on. That if a woman feels uncomfortable, if you want to come in, Kishore, come in. If a woman feels uncomfortable with that insistence on a handshake or a male boss standing behind her or touching her on the back/shoulder and asking her about her menstrual leave, then she has a point to it. कोई भी फालतू में in a workspace बात का बतंगड़ नहीं बनाता है.
Okay, Shreya, let me just give in the viewpoint and then I'll hear Deepika. I think Deepika will be the most vociferous here and I would love to listen to her viewpoint because she's going to back for us. Okay, but the point here I'm trying to say is that what is constituted as a harassing message is very evident. You can read the message and understand. But at the same time, imagine I'm working with a colleague for 10 years and I say, well done, and with a tap on the back. You can't just take it as sexual harassment. Point number one. Point number two, please understand the core differential.
That is not what the court is saying. And that is not what PoSH says.
Pardon me?
I'm saying that is not what the court is saying. That is not what PoSH says.
Okay,
they are saying if it is unwelcome behavior.
If it is unwelcome, so that's why I said
that pat on the back can be welcome behavior. It can also be unwelcome behavior.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. I agree. Court may be right, but I'm talking of IPR, interpersonal relationship, which means what we are basically building up a society to say is that robotically stand in front of you if I'm working in a newsroom and say Shreya, good morning, let me go back. I'm not a robot. Please understand that it doesn't work. Human beings work on emotions, and emotions cannot be drawn on specific boundaries drawn by courtrooms and IPCs. Deepika, I would like to listen to your views and others also, because if you open the lid on me on this, I'm going to go all round. I don't want to be charged with contempt of court.
नहीं तो Mr. Subramaniam, how can anyone stop you from saying what you want to say? We are a democracy, and at Mirror Now we like to have everyone's point of view represented. Just like we like Abhiram's point of view represented, we like your point of view to be represented as well. After all, our viewers are not just female, they are male as well. After all, my colleagues are not just female, they are male as well. है ना? So, Deepika Narayan, would you want to come in here?
कोई बोल देगा किशोर ने न्यूज़रूम में हरास कर दिया किसी को.
नहीं तो यही प्रॉब्लम है. कुछ भी बोलो नहीं ये this is exactly the reaction that bothers me. Any clarity comes on sexual harassment, the PoSH Act, etc. The men will say, oh, up to we cannot speak to women also. और कोई कुछ भी sexual harassment बोल देंगे. There is a certain nuance to it which needs to be understood. Deepika Narayan, would you want to come in here?
I like to present my point with examples of the cases that I've seen around me. So while this Madras High Court judgment is there, Shreya, I want to talk about a case from Bangalore where a woman said that in middle of 10 people in a meeting, her boss was looking at her inappropriately. Now, everybody else in the meeting said that nothing like this happened, but because this woman felt uncomfortable with the gaze of the man, he was accused of sexual harassment. Now, second Gurgaon case, it was a suicide case where the woman said that because he constantly called me when I had to be picked up for a cab, and that poor chap was calling her because she was getting late and their cab always got delayed, she put that as an allegation that he was harassing me by calling me when there was a cab pickup. So point that I'm trying to make, Shreya, is that I think uh, an act and provision, a section having decent repercussion when a man gets charged with it, there can be suspension, there can be various other measures that have been provided in PoSH Act, and basing it completely on feelings, I think is a very gray area to deal with, Shreya. And let me tell what Madras High Court said, which makes this judgment. I know PoSH Act is all about intent and action does not matter. Sorry, intent does not matter. It is your action matter. But see, here is where the problem is. It says different genders are expected to interact with each other with decency. Decency is not what the man thinks within himself, but how he makes the other gender feel about his actions. The standard of reasonableness is not the standard of a reasonable man, but that of a reasonable woman. So, then you are saying in gender relationship or in interaction at workplaces, nothing is in the realm of what a man feel or what a man all about a woman on how she's taking things as. And Shreya, last point is, now what if just
Obviously,
one gesture of a man asking for a handshake is objectionable to a woman? No, I'm saying, Shreya, what if just one gesture of a man giving a handshake is objectionable? So
but insisting on a handshake when the woman doesn't want it, what is that? Why will he do that?
No, yes,
ये भी तो देखो ना. I understand the point you're trying to make. Yeah. And have I seen the PoSH Act being misused? I've been a career person for the last 20 years. Have I seen the PoSH Act being misused? Yes, I have. But then I have also seen in big organizations where a senior manager, someone considered indispensable in an office, is accused of sexual harassment. It is the woman who has to leave. वो ICC भी कुछ नहीं करता, PoSH Act भी कुछ नहीं कर पाता. तो this is a double-edged sword.
There is, yes, absolutely. There's misuse of power on both the sides, Shreya. There is no doubt about that. All that I'm saying is, I think when the provisions become a little more in the gray area, there is a by default apprehension कि भैया करना क्या है, कैसे behave करना है. So men, honestly, I'll be very honest, they are a little confused on what is right or wrong, what somebody can construe as right or wrong, what behavior may be fine for a woman. For example, there are a lot of men and women who crack jokes with each other. We all know that, right? But some women may take an objection to it. In fact, there was a case from South India where a woman took objection, and it was a media organization. She took objection to her name being associated with a song, And that was the complaint in the sexual harassment that, there's this song which has my name in it. And, this person basically sings that song when all of us are sitting. Earlier, they were friends, but now that becomes objectionable. So I'm saying, I think basing very strict provisions on feelings, but at the end of the day, I think it's the ICC that has to take call. And there's no doubt that there are men who are predators at workplaces, and they need to be dealt with as well. And over here, there are 3 women accusing him, so probably the person was wrong.
Dr. Charuvali Khanna, therefore the question, has the Madras High Court ruling cleared for us what actually constitutes sexual harassment in case there was vagueness, or has it confused matters further?
First,
and the question that Deepika is asking is a question a lot of male supervisors are asking as well. How can you leave everything to feeling? How can you leave everything to what a woman feels?
Absolutely.
It may not be my intention, but if she feels that, how's that my problem?
I want to clarify that the act and the judgment are clear. There's absolutely no ambiguity. The act says any unwelcome act or behavior. For the first time, the provision of law sees things from a woman's point of view. That means that she finds something unwelcome. Now, to come to these 3 specific incidents, was the gentleman a doctor and she a patient that he's asking her in her last monthly period? No. So it will fall in the realm of sexual harassment, which is obvious. Being physical with a woman in a workplace, when we know that we are living in a very highly segregated society. Maybe metros, like Deepika said, that you crack jokes, but a lot of girls who are coming in the field of technology, banking, and media, they're not comfortable with someone getting physical, or for that matter, handshake. Now, I want to clarify to you, to the viewers, and to some of your speakers, if a man says, let's have a handshake, that will not come in the realm of sexual harassment. If he asks her again, why don't you shake my hand the third time, that means he wants to get physical with me. And I'm not comfortable. Maybe I'm from a small town, or maybe I'm not in the culture of handshake. I'm in a culture of namaste. That is clear. You can't say ki kya baat kare. When the act says unwelcome act, the girl has to communicate that it's unwelcome. It's not about feeling. If he's coming and touching me, I'm not comfortable, sir. Please don't get physical with me. She has to communicate that it's unwelcome. Maybe he doesn't know. You see, maybe he's used to touching women and women don't say anything, or maybe they like it or whatever. Or that gentleman, the boss who had that male gaze. She has to show that it was unwelcome. And finally, I must give credit to the corporate sector and to the technology sector that they have a sensitive ICC who went through this and they indicted the man. It's a disciplinary proceeding. The idea of the PoSH Act is to have a redressal mechanism within the organization so that women are in a safe workplace and men don't indulge in inappropriate behavior with the women. And they also understand what is inappropriate behavior. That's why in the Act, you're supposed to have workshops. Now, for a man to say, we don't know ki kya baat kare, I think it's absurd. To say that you go and crack jokes with a person.
Dr. Charubani Khanna, let's be real, workshop kahin nahi hoti. If you do a survey, if you do a sample survey, half the offices, even in and around where you live, will not have an ICC. Like we found out that most of the sports bodies in India, including the Wrestling Federation, had no ICC, despite it becoming a law in 2013. So compliance is a completely different matter. But Dr. Nisha, should the Madras High Court...
Enforcement of the law is weak in our country, whether it's relating to the penal code or now the Nyaya Samhita, everywhere. But that doesn't mean that if a person, it's just, on feelings. What everybody seems to have the impression that on feelings a person is going to be indicted or the inquiry will go against that person. I think it was the Labour Court who overturned the ruling of the IC, who didn't understand what is sexual harassment.
But the complaint...
But
Charuji, the complaint will be based on what a woman feels. Like there is, of course, if it's an obvious act of, say, a forced kiss or an attempted rape or a sexual assault, that's a different issue altogether. But that is not what happens in workplaces.
But
the sexual harassment is far more discreet, right? And the reporting will happen based on what the woman feels rather than what the man has actually done. But Dr. Nisha, should the Madras High Court then today have come up and also asked women in workplaces to articulate their discomfort to the man who is making them feel uncomfortable before approaching the ICC and going to PoSH? Because I don't see that happening. And I don't see that happening because I think, this is a skewed power dynamic where the male is a senior supervisor, the woman is a junior, maybe just about starting. She doesn't think she has a voice. So she doesn't know what the intention is. She decides to herself, maybe keeping quiet is the best thing. Maybe keeping quiet is not the best thing. As we get older, we realize that, Dr. Nisha.
See, what I would like to say is that you need to see this particular topic with a lot of pragmatism and practical approach as well. See, I work with men around me, be it my bosses or the people, my colleagues who I work with. We know what is good touch and a bad touch, right? We have been taught all that. So it depends upon the women from where they come also. So we need to encourage women. If you see the female labor force participation in the country, India over the years, it has increased. And as for the recent 2024-25 data, it has come up to more than 40%, approximately 41%. So we need to make sure that this is even more increasing. So now all these kind of sexual harassment, be it physical, verbal, or even a gesture, can also lead to a lot of issues where it can cause a lot of mental stress. It will lead to reduction in the productivity of the female to work in the workplace. And at the end of the day, she will actually feel that she's not coming up. But let me put a point very clear to you. Now, there are so many false case accusations that has been happening against the men as well. I have my father, my brother, my friend, my son, in future who can work. So now, a woman is considering a touch, a gesture in a wrong way. And now, even if she has some sort of issue, for example, my boss is coming and telling me, hey, why did you not finish the work on time? What is wrong with you? Now, what if I take it as a vengeance and I go and file a sexual harassment case against him? So are we not paving a way for the PoSH Act under the so-called
No, that is a generalization.
Act to be more vague and have ambiguity in that as well?
Nisha,
So
we cannot assume that every woman in the, Dr. Nisha, we cannot assume that every woman in the workplace, if she is reprimanded, if she wants to take revenge from a man at the workplace, will go and report to the ICC. That, that is also pushing things a lot. Again, as I've said, have I seen the PoSH Act being misused? Yes, I've seen it being misused. But have I seen that despite complaints to an ICC, the man has been punished? No, he's not been punished because he's been seen to be indispensable. Ultimately, the woman has had to leave. So, it is misused both by the man and the woman. My point is, has the Madras High Court given more clarity to us, or has it confused things? Again, depending on which side you stand on, you can take a view.
No,
we'll leave it there, Dr. Nisha, for the moment. Thank you.
I truly not even support 0.1%
I'm out of time, but
perspective. But then it doesn't mean that we have to, also not address the issue what the opposite gender is also facing. So there is a
Shreya, just one statement I want to make, Shreya.
Sure.
I think it is very, very important for us
women. Okay, Deepika, go ahead. 10 seconds. 10 seconds.
Yes. I am leading to what you said. Very beautiful point, Shreya. If something is not okay with us, let us just say it, because, maybe men are not conditioned automatically to understand women,
To say it is unwelcome, you must communicate.
Everyone agrees to it. Chalo, for a change, everyone on the panel is agreeing to one thing I've said. Deepika, we'll leave it there for the moment. Abhirami, thank you very much. Dr. Nishal, good to have you on the show. Charu Ali Khanna, thank you very much. And Kishore Subramanian, thank you very much. We always give you a platform to say exactly what you want to say. Today, you have held back. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, on that note, a break. Up next, why is the Aam Aadmi Party and the BJP fighting once again? Do stay with us.